Hey guys, welcome to Amity Tracks, and welcome to our ranking, our U2 studio albums ranking video. This is a second video in about a 3-video series on U2. If you missed the first video, I highly recommend you go check that out. It's kind of all the introductory stuff, and it addresses a fascinating topic to me, at least, is why people hate U2. It's kind of a fun video, I think, and great discussion in the comments. I got to hand it to you guys. I asked for comments, and you guys delivered. That's one of my favorite things is great discussion in the comments. I guess it's a contentious topic. Why people hate U2, and so there are people on both sides of it in the comments. It was great. But in that video, I also kind of laid out my own feelings and history with the band and all that. So I just want to get straight into the rankings here because we got a lot to do. I got 16 records I want to talk about here. I am including Rattle and Hum. I think most people do include Rattle and Hum, even though it is partially live, but it's mostly new material. And even the few songs that were not new material are sort of dramatically reinterpreted. That like the gospel choir on "I Still Haven't Found What I'm Looking For" and that kind of thing. And maybe more controversially, I'm also including the Passengers record from 1995, the original Soundtracks Volume 1, which was U2 and Brian Eno. But Brian Eno is sort of an equal partner in the band, and so they called themselves the Passengers. It's really a side project, but I mean, Brian Eno plays such a huge role in a lot of their records, way more than the traditional producer role. So what's the difference, right? So I'm including the Passenger record. All right, so if you do that, you got 16 records here. So let's get started. At number 16 in the bottom slot, 2 stars from 2017, I do have Songs of Experience. Yeah, there's really not much on here that I like. I guess Lights of Home was all right. Yeah, that's about it. I, all the different producers on here. I don't know if they just don't really know what they want with their sound. I don't know, and it's just kind of an overall blandness for me. So yeah, there's not much to say on this one. I guess in conjunction, I'll talk about my number 15, which is Songs of Innocence. So 16, 15, Songs of Innocence, which I think is slightly better. The whole iTunes, which I don't know, never upset me that much. I mean, okay, you're giving me free music, whatever. But but anyway, the iTunes debacle aside, I think there's a few more standout tracks on here. I give both of these 2 stars, but a few standouts on here. Every Breaking Wave is, kind of catches some of that old anthemic thing. California is all right. Trying to do some little Beach Boys thing. It didn't work. Didn't really work though. Cedarwood Road, I think, is good. Sleep Like a Baby Tonight. Actually, I really like that. It's actually harkens back a little more of their experimental sound. It's kind of cool. But yeah, just I maybe appreciate the semi kind of concept album things they're going with here, but it just to me these sound like U2 is trying to make records kind of keeping in mind what U2 should sound like. It's like, oh, they're almost like trying to reproduce a U2 sound. And you are U2, so just be you. I don't know. I I much prefer the experimentation. And anyway, so these don't do anything for me. Neither one. Songs of Innocence, Songs of Experience. And number 14 from 2023, adding a half a star here, so 2.5 stars. Why don't we just go with the other songs of, as in Songs of Surrender? Okay, Songs of Surrender. Now you can have the 2 LP version, the double album version, or the 4 CD version. That's right. It's like a box set. Look at all the songs. 4 discs of what? Well, this was basically a COVID project, right? This was mainly Bono and Edge, who sort of sent tracks back and forth to each other, during lockdown and maybe a little bit after. I don't know. From what I understand, Larry and Adam Wisely weren't that involved in this whole thing. It's mainly a Bono and Edge project. And yeah, it's just, let's revisit our whole catalog and slow it all down and do kind of real slow acoustic versions of, yeah. It's one of my favorite videos I've ever done. Go back and find my review of this record. Anyway, but yeah, I mean, now there are some nice things on there. I will say this: the surprisingly good are some of the tracks from Songs of Experience and Songs of Innocence, where they kind of recast in this setting. Somehow they take away this sort of that bland band setting and strip it away a little bit, and some of those songs are okay, a little bit better than you thought, you know. So that's something. And I mean, obviously, at one point, let's take the CD. I mean, you know, went through the whole thing, all 4 discs, and I kind of pulled out some great. There are some great songs on here. If you ask me what they are right now, I couldn't tell you, and I'm not going to go back through 4 CDs to find them again. And therein lies the problem. It's just way too much, and the good is way outbalanced by the mediocre. So, all right, lesson here. Is there a lesson? Yeah. Stop titling your records songs of whatever. There's the lesson. Okay. Number 13. I do have the aforementioned Passengers record, original soundtracks, one from 1995, going up to 3 stars here. So this was, and it kind of makes sense that they, went under a pseudonym, with Brian Eno, because this really does sort of have like side project written all over it. It's the story is that they were kind of having some writer's block. They were kind of stuck in the mid '90s. Eno says, "Hey, let's go in the studio and let's just sort of experiment," and this sort of came out of that. And it's kind of a cool concept, because you two can make some great moody music, especially with Brian Eno. And so they said, let's sort of make soundtrack music, but for movies that don't exist. So most of these tracks, it's kind of cool because they list these movie titles and stuff, but some of this are just fictional, like they don't actually exist. Now, a few of these tunes were tied to actual films or used later, like "Always Forever Now," which I think is a really cool track that ended up on the Heat soundtrack. I remember that. But yeah, I'm kind of a sucker for I like Brian Eno's ambient stuff. I like a lot of instrumental-ish, moody soundtrack music. So I'm kind of prone to stuff like this. I think it could have been done better. Not it's not all interesting. Um, what's that? Your Blue Room is good. Always Forever Now I like a lot. Miss Sarajevo was the one track that got some attention. That's of course with Luciano Pavarotti on on guest vocals, right? That's kind of cool. Elvis Ate America is, I don't know, I think it's kind of cool. But yeah, it is minor. It is a side project, but I still like it than all the songs of records. All right, coming in at number 12 from 2009, still 3 stars. I do have No Line on the Horizon. This one is frustrating to me. This one is very frustrating to me. It does open up. There they are with a castle. Because this could have been a lot better. And it starts strong with the title track. I love the title track. It sounds kind of reaching back a little bit to a little more experimental, vibe to it. It's kind of interesting groove. I'm not saying it sounds like it, but for some reason, like when I hear this track, I kind of think of Sort of Homecoming. It's just sort of an unusual, sort of vibey track. I love it. I love it. And so I remember when I bought this, first started listening to it, and that song comes on. Oh wow, I've been waiting for this. And the second track, Magnificent, is good, more straightforward, but okay, it's a good song. And then it just kind of gets into sort of blandness, and you can tell compromise. If they would just let go and say, okay, let's be experimental. But no, during this period, they want it both ways. They want to be respected, as this great experimental band and artistic band, but they also want the hits, and for whatever reason, they want to still be really popular. And so, you have something really cool like No Line on the Horizon on here, or Breathe. I think Breathe is a really strong song too. But then you also have I'll Go Crazy If I Don't Go Crazy Tonight, which is asinine, or Get On Your Boots. So it's just like, come on, guys. I mean, this could have been great, but it ain't. All right. Coming in number 11, 2004, 3 stars still. I have How to Dismantle an Atomic Bomb. I think Bono, when he was sort of looking back on this and reassessing this one, uh, he, he said it's a better group of songs than it is an actual like cohesive record. And I think he's right. I think he's right. I mean, there's some really it's front loaded, like honestly, like a lot of U2 records from the 21st century are. It's front loaded. I think Vertigo is a fine rock song, but you got sick of it because it's on those stupid Apple commercials all the time, right? Miracle Drug is nice. Sometimes You Can't Make It on Your Own is nice. A City of Blinding Lights, I think, is fantastic. I should have gotten more attention. But yeah, they definitely kind of have that sort of U2 anthemic song structure down by now on here, almost to a formula, which maybe it's not such a good thing. I really like the closer, Yahweh. I think that's a fantastic song. Nice deep cut. But yeah, other than Yahweh, I mean, the whole second side, it doesn't do anything for me. I think it's kind of bland. But a real strong first half plus Yahweh. I think so. So there you go. All right, number 10. We have from 2000, getting the 21st century out of the way, right? Still 3 stars. All That You Can't Leave Behind. Now, this, of course, was a huge comeback, so to speak. They were sort of artistically searching through the mid to late '90s, and when this first hit, I was real excited about it. It seemed to really, kind of okay. They're kind of sort of coming back and grounded again. Um, and so here's the thing. I think this would be a much better record, not changing anything, but if after this record, so it's almost like if this had been sort of again, let's just kind of go back to basics, go back to grounding, and it's a real solid record. But then after this, they sort of recharge and go back to being experimental and trying new things. I think in hindsight, this would be a better record. But unfortunately, what this record did, as you see for the rest of the 21st century to now, is it was so successful for them. I think they got a taste of that, and they thought, well, we can still be on top. And so then they've sort of played it safe and tried to have these hits. And I think they would be a much better band if they have kept that experimental spirit. You know, but let's just look at it for the record. It is same deal. I think it's front loaded. I think the first side is fantastic, almost kind of classic level. I think "Beautiful Day" is a modern U2 classic. I think it's a great song. "Stuck in a Moment You Can't Get Out of" is nice. I think Bono wrote those lyrics about Michael Hutchence, if I remember correctly. "Elevation's" cool. Got a little bit of sort of '90s vibe in there. "Walk On" is anthemic. "Kite" I love. That's a great album track. It wasn't a single or anything, but I love "Kite." I think he wrote that about his dad. I don't remember. "In a Little While" is nice. But then you get to the second side, and there's just like nothing there that interests me. So it's just this is like half great. So anyway, all right, moving on. Number 9. Let's go to 1988 with "Rattle and Hum." Rattle and Hum. This is this. It's a song Charles Manson stole from the Beatles. We're stealing it back. Anyway, yeah, there's some embarrassing moments on here. I mean, there are embarrassing moments in the film, right? So this was kind of. I mean, Joshua Tree was so huge, so defining that it's like they didn't know where to go. Initially afterwards. So this is, in some ways, this is kind of a holding pattern. Um, and it gets really close to parody, especially you look in the film. You know, Elvis's grave and Graceland and the whole bit. But I do think in that film, the actual like concert footage is still dynamic. It's fantastic. There's some good stuff on here. I like Van Diemen's Land. Is that the only? I know you have Numb on Zooropa, but that's kind of spoken word almost. But Van Diemen's Land, is that the only one where Edge like full out gets a lead vocal like singing? Actually, Edge Edge's backing vocals is kind of the secret weapon that people don't talk about. He's got a great voice, so I think it's cool that he's given a song to sing. Desire, is great. Sort of a kind of a Bo Diddley thing, but it's great. They're obviously trying to explore these American sounds. Angel of Harlem is great. I really like that. I still haven't found what I'm looking for, that live, with the big gospel choir. And then of course, I mean, a peak U2 song, All I Want Is You. I mean, if that's the only song we got off of this, then it was worth having. I think that's kind of cool in the gatefold. There they are. How authentic, right? How American authentic. They're recording in Sun Studios in Memphis. It was cool. I went to Sun Studios a couple years ago to tour and see it. And Larry Mullen's drum case or drum kit in this picture, and they're in one of these studio in Sun Studios, is still there. I guess he left it there, for the museum or whatever. But it's cool. You go there, and they got all this Elvis stuff, Johnny Cash stuff, all the Roy Orbison, whatever. And then there's Larry Mullen Jr.'s drum kit from the Rattle and Hum sessions is in there. That's kind of cool. Anyway, yeah, Rattle and Hum. All right, number 8. So still 3 stars with Rattle and Hum, but we're creeping up to 3.5 stars here at number 8. I have the Sophomore Effort October from 1981. This one is, I don't, I've got a soft spot for this one because it's kind of lost in the shuffle. It really is forgotten in some ways. I mean, because you have the debut, which was just kind of fiery right out of the gate. And then on the other side of this, you have War, which was kind of their huge breakthrough. So this sort of gets lost in between Boy and War is October. And so in some ways, since it's it's probably the least played, overplayed U2 record, or the least overplayed. So it still sounds a little fresh, and that's kind of nice. But I some of the complaints, some of these songs don't sound totally finished. A lot of it isn't really too much of a move forward from the debut. So I understand some of those complaints, but I really like it. And I do think there's some standout stuff on here. Gloria is a great song. I mean, their spiritual quest, their sort of Christian base, probably on this more than any other record, really shines through. I've always liked I Threw a Brick Through a Window. That was cool. October, the title track, I think it's the one track that really stayed in their set lists for decades on. Beautiful spare piano. We talked about Edge and his his limitations on guitar, in the previous video, his limitations on guitar, where he was then able to brilliantly kind of create his own guitar language. He's even more limited on the piano, so very simple but very melodic, beautiful piano lines. And Tomorrow, I love Tomorrow. There's really not another song in U2's catalog like Tomorrow. Very haunting. I believe Bono wrote it about his deceased mother, I think. Anyway, there's some good stuff on here. This was a troubled recording session. They almost broke up. Actually, it's kind of interesting. You read about it. They almost broke up. And in the previous video, I talked about these great expanded editions. This is the first of which in this list, and so this is fantastic. But they almost broke up. Bono, Edge, and Larry were kind of at the peak of their kind of Christian exploration, and they were part of this kind of really extreme group. And poor Adam was the only one who was kind of on the outside. It's funny. I've seen interviews with Adam where he talks about this period. He's like, it was really frustrating because, I was in this band and we were like on the rise. It's like your dream, right? You're in a rising rock band, and he's just ready to kind of live the rock and roll lifestyle. But he's like, I'm stuck with these 3 monks, who all they want to do is like pray and question whether they should even be in a rock band. And it's kind of funny. Adam was frustrated. But yeah, and of course, Bono lost, or someone stole, a briefcase with all of his lyrics in here. So very late, like while they're recording these songs, he almost had to kind of improvise new lyrics. So there's a kind of a troubled recording. So in some ways, it's surprising this is as good as it is. But like I said, I got a soft spot for October. Number 7. Some of you guys might be surprised I have this record this high. Still at 3.5 stars. But I do have 1997's Pop here at number 7. And I got a lot to say on Pop. So I'm a Pop defender. This record doesn't have a great reputation in a lot of circles, and I can understand some of the reasons why. But I'll tell you this: I admire this record because to me, this is the last time U2 was interesting. Like really, still trying to do new things and different things. And yeah, they stumble a little bit here. It isn't all successful, and it's unfinished. We'll talk about that in a second. But they're still really stretching out and trying new things. To me, it's the last time they were kind of that interesting. So anyway, and when I say unfinished, some of you guys probably know the story, right? But they'd already booked this huge tour ahead of time, the Pop Mart tour, and so they had a hard deadline. They had to have this finished, and they just weren't done. But they kind of put it out anyway. And I know this because too, if you this I'll talk about this after we finish the countdown. But compilation, the best of 1990 through 2000. The pop songs that are on this compilation, these are all sort of the re-recordings, not just remastered, but they actually kind of re-recorded different versions of these songs, and they are uniformly better on here than on here. Uh, and I don't mind Discotheque. Actually, a lot of people don't like that. I like that song. Mofo, I think, is kind of the hardest they went, in that sort of dance thing. And if they had made a full record of Mofos, that would be kind of cool, actually. Last Night on Earth is good. But to me, the gem here, and again, it's unfinished on here because you listen to the version on here, it's so much better, and that is the song Gone. Gone, I think, should be one of their most anthemic songs in their whole catalog, and it is on here. But the thing is, they really perfected that song on stage while they were touring, and then they were able to re-record it with that new arrangement that they worked out on stage for here. Like if this version had been on the original album and they had pushed that as a single, I think it'd be a modern U2 classic. I mean, it is that great of a song. But then a lot of the stuff, especially in the latter half, really is sort of unfinished. So is what it is. But I do think it's the last time they were really interesting. All right, number 6. We're at 4 stars now, and this is where I do have the debut, 1980s Boy, and just right out of the gate, um, this unique musical identity. It's still raw, but man, I Will Follow, Twilight, Out of Control, Story for Boys, yeah, The Electric Co. I mean, just great songs from the very beginning. And again, we talk about these reissue, kind of remaster, reissue deluxe editions. The deluxe edition of Boy is really worth having. The bonus disc. It has their original EP that they put out before this, which is cool. Really interesting, kind of raw early songs, and it's some great live stuff too. So yeah, I mean, I can't say enough about these reissues. But yeah, I mean, I think again from the get go, just really announcing this band with this unique identity from the get go. Yeah, Boy is fantastic, solid 4 stars, and that's great for a debut. All right, 5 through 1. I'm really kind of revealing my U2 fandom here. Uh, 5 through 1, I have as 5-star records. I know that's a lot, but I think these are pretty perfect. Pretty perfect. In my 5 slot, this might be a hot take, kind of controversial, because I bet you probably half of you guys at least watching this video, this is your number 1 U2 record. I have it at 5 stars. Okay, I think it's a 5-star record. I just love 4 records more. So yeah, I can already tell I'm gonna get hosed in the comments, but Achtung Baby. I have it in my 5 slot. I know. But let me sing its praises first, okay? Uh, I think this is unquestionably the greatest reinvention in rock history. Um, Joshua Tree, Top of the World, Rattle and Hum is kind of a holding pattern, but kind of a dangerous, Rattle and Hum was indicative of, like, if they had kept going down that path, it just would have been diminishing returns. And so this was a brilliant left turn, and they had the songs to back it up. So there you go. Um, yeah, no, brilliant. I have nothing to complain about with Octung Baby. It's brilliant. Yeah, yeah, Ultraviolet. Yeah, I love a lot of the deeper cuts. I mean, Ultraviolet, Until the End of the World, Who's Gonna Ride Your Wild Horses. And those aren't even the hits. One is fantastic. So, you know, I what can I say? This if Joshua Tree and Rattle and Hum were sort of their American albums, and were their kind of American obsession, you know. But from kind of an immigrant's viewpoint, this is when they go back to Europe. This is their Europe. This and its follow up, which is what I have. Oh, by the way, the deluxe edition of uh, of Octung Baby is fantastic. All those great B sides. This was the era where they had really great remixes too and stuff. So yeah, it's great. But yeah, they're European records. Octung Baby and its follow up, which was what I have at number 4, Zooropa. I I know it's crazy. I have, and it's always been this way. Like even from the '90s on, I've always loved Zooropa more than Octung Baby. I know objectively Octung Baby is more important, better record, but I love this one more. I just think it's kind of the direction they were going in Octung Baby. They get there here. Like, this is their most Euro record. It's just fantastic. They just go all out, all out. I even love Lemon. I love Lemon. Stay Far Away So Close is one of my favorite U2 songs. It's gorgeous. To me, it's sort of Stay is sort of this record's one on Octung Baby, but I love Stay more than one. Um, this whole thing, even seemingly kind of weird throwaways like Babyface. Some Days Are Better. I love everything on here, and then that really, like, out of nowhere Johnny Cash, coming in on The Wanderer. I mean, where the hell that come from? But yeah, Johnny Cash and U2. It's fantastic. Oh, I love it. I just love this whole thing. Daddy's gonna pay for your crash car. So good, so good. All right, top 3 here. My number 3, 1983, War. I think this War. War is the culmination of that first era. You know, Boy, October, War, and then it's really kind of capped off with the live album Under a Blood Red Sky, right? But War is, again, kind of like with Joshua Tree. Like, they couldn't do that any better, so they had to go move into Octung Baby. Same thing here. Like, this is the culmination. They can't do what they were doing any better, in their first phase of their career. So after this, they did have to shift gears. But I mean, this, Sunday Bloody Sunday, New Year's Day. New Year's Day, I think, is their great. I don't know, maybe one of their greatest. It's hard to say what their greatest hit is. Um, but again, one of those very simple edge piano lines, which is the distinctive melody, in New Year's Day. One of the things I like, kind of, when they go a little acoustic on here. Um, Seconds and Drowning Man, I think, are, God, they should have done that type of sound more. Surrender is great. Yeah, it's just the whole thing. I mean, this is a perfect record. It's a perfect record. And 40, the closer, is just, I mean, that takes you to a whole different place. Again, I'm, Psalm 40. I don't remember. It's 40 is based on a psalm in the Bible, right? So I mean, still holding on to their faith there. Man, that's a gorgeous song. Perfect record. Perfect record. All right. But even more perfect records. Number 2, number 1. This is hard. But my number 2 from 1984 is The Unforgettable Fire. This is one of those records I can listen to 10,000 times. It's just, I love the mood. This, of course, is when Brian Eno and Daniel Lanois kind of got on board. And again, they had gone as far as they could with War and Under a Blood Red Sky, and so then they shift gears here, and it's I admire the hell out of them for being willing to do that and being willing to listen to Eno and Lanois and to do what they said, basically, right? Daniel Lanois and Brian Eno are basically fifth and sixth members of the band on this. I mean, they're actually playing some instruments. They're key, and kudos to you too for allowing that to happen. I think it's a unique mood. Sort of Homecoming, the opener, I think is stunningly good. Larry Mullen's drums, those drums are so good. I don't know if you knew this, but the track on the second side, Elvis Presley in America, they took uh, um, Larry's drums from Sort of Homecoming, and I think slowed it down. And I'm not sure if they reversed it or not, but anyway, it's the same drum track, but they just like manipulated it. So that's kind of cool. Uh, oh, this is just so great. The song that's known as Pride, and that might be my least favorite song on here, just because it's a great song. But so, we heard it so much. I really never need to hear that again. The rest, the this little span on here from Unforgettable Fire, Promenade, 4th of July, and to Bad is beautifully, just so moody. Yeah, and I love that mood. I mean, Bad, of course. Um, I can't talk about Unforgettable Fire without talking about, of course, the EP Wide Awake in America, which was released in its wake. To me, these live versions, although they're actually recorded at Soundcheck and they added audience sound, but it doesn't matter. Bad and Sort of Homecoming, I think, are the version of Bad on here is my favorite U2 track of all time. I think it takes already a great track and just takes it to a different level. And then there's two great B-sides on here. I also have this, right? The Unforgettable Fire. This is the I guess the maxi single or whatever with more B-sides. For Unforgettable Fire, the the deluxe edition that's put out, this is essential. That disc 2, they had such great B-sides. I mean, it could have been a double record. And some interesting stuff on here too. There is a version, this remix of Sort of Homecoming features Peter Gabriel on backing vocals, actually. So that's kind of cool. Anyway, just yeah, I love all the B-sides. Love all the B-sides on here. Love it all. Love it all. This is in my top 20 favorite records of all time. And of course, so is the first one. So, at number 1, we have The Joshua Tree from 1987. And this is where we wrap things up, because the next video is going to be a deep dive into this record, because I really want to get into the nuts and bolts here, get into the details. So the next video, the last video in this U2 series, will be a deep dive into Joshua Tree. So we'll talk about it then. All right, just real quick. Just gonna wrap some things up here. U2 doesn't have a lot of live records. It's interesting that Under a Blood Red Sky is really their only like kind of fully official release. But you go through their website, their fan club, you can get a lot of live stuff. I have this. This is the Zoo TV. That was that video that was out a lot, but this is the CD for it, which is fantastic. There's all kinds of bootlegs and stuff out there. As far as compilations go, these are the two I would recommend, which is best of 1980, 1990, and then best of 1990 through 2000. They're really good, and they, if you get the deluxe editions, again, they have second discs with all these B-sides and just essential stuff on there. Well, all right, next time, deep dive into Joshua Tree. So let's have it in the comments. What did I get right? What did I get wrong? Let's talk U2. Let's talk rankings. And we'll see you next time on Amity Tracks.